have you ever had an ugly old dog, but an ugly old dog that turned out to be the best dog you ever owned? This is what I think of my ugly old dog. This is an ugly old dog that will never let you down. At least it's never let me down. This is a British-made Sten Mark II. If this was an American-made gun, it would be called a submachine gun. If this was a German-made gun, it would be called a machine pistol. But since this is a British-made gun, it is a machine carbine. Now, a little history on this gun. It was in 1940, right after Dunkirk, where the British suffered their biggest military defeat ever. They managed to save all of their troops, or almost all of them, but they lost all of their small arms. They left everything behind. So the British Army in 1940, they were desperate for small arms, and one of the biggest things that they needed was a good machine carbine or submachine gun. Now, at the time, the only submachine guns they could get their hands on was the British-made Lanchester submachine gun, but they only had a couple of thousand of those, and they were for the Royal Navy. The Lanchester was actually a British-made copy of a German MKII submachine gun, and it was very expensive and time-consuming to manufacture. So that wasn't the gun they wanted. The only other gun they could get, a submachine gun they could get a hold of, was the American Thompson 1928A1. But the Americans wanted $200 a piece for them, and the British just couldn't afford it. So they needed a gun, a submachine gun that would be easy to manufacture and something they could make millions of for their troops. They looked at the German MP40 that just came out, and they said, "Hey, we need something like that." Well, they got a hold of two guys that were associated with the Enfield manufacturing company. Now, Enfield was a company who made small arms for the British military. Enfield was to the British military what Springfield Armory was for the United States at the time. They had two people. One guy was named, he was a major in the military, and his name was Reginald Shepard. And the other guy was named, was Harold Turpin. And Harold Turpin was actually a draftsman for Enfield. He would make plans for the guns that he designed, and that other people designed. So these two got together and they actually designed this gun, and they actually gave this gun this gun its name. This is a Sten gun, S-T-E-N, S for Shepard, T for Turpin, and E-N. There's two stories on what the E-N stood for on this gun. According to the inventors of this gun, Shepard and Turpin, they said the E-N stood for England because this gun was made in England. After the war, the British military, they said that the E-N stood for Enfield because Enfield was the one that designed it. So you can go either way. Now, I would believe the people who invented this gun first. So I would think that E-N would stood for England, but it doesn't really matter. There were different marks of this gun. This is the Mark II. And the British made between 2 and 3 million of these, which makes it the most produced version of the Sten. The last version of the Sten was the Sten Mark V. The Sten continued its service until it was replaced in 1953 with the British Sterling machine carbine. But even though it was replaced in 1953, the British continued to use these guns up into the early 60s. You can still find Sten Mark IIs and other versions of the Sten all over the world, but usually in the Middle East and Asia. So I wanted to show you sort of how this particular gun works. Okay. Now here we have the selector button here. This is like the only really big control on this gun aside from the trigger. If you look at the selector button, you'll see that this is marked with an A. If you push this button in here, your gun is set for full auto, A for auto. If you look over here on the other side, there's an R printed on this side. If you push this in, you're set for repeat fire. That's the British designation for semi-auto. So I'm going to put it back in full auto because I like it in full auto. Now, I usually leave it always in full auto because This gun has a cyclic rate of about 550 rounds per minute, so you can actually fire single shots just by manipulating the trigger. You don't have to use the semi-auto setting in here. So I'm going to show you how this submachine gun works. The first thing you do is you take, this is the bolt handle, you pull it back. You notice that it's cocked. This submachine gun fires from an open bolt. When you pull the trigger, the bolt slides forward. If you have a loaded magazine in here, it'll strip a round off of that magazine and it will fire it immediately. It'll keep going back and the gun will keep cycling and firing until you either run out of ammunition or you release the trigger. Like that. Now, if you want to put this gun in the safe mode, this is the safety. This is the safety notch. This is the original safety that was on all Sten guns. When this is in the safety notch, there's no way this gun will fire. This is an unloaded magazine. Better be unloaded. This gun is safe to fire. When you're ready to fire this gun, if there's a loaded magazine in here, now it's ready to fire. Now it's ready to fire. You pull the trigger, it will fire. So once again, safety. You're not killing. Now you're killing. You're not killing. You're killing. That's simple. Now later on in the war, the British had problems with what they call inertial discharge. And what inertial discharge is that if you have a loaded magazine in this gun and you have this bolt forward, if you dropped it, the bolt will continue moving on inertia and it won't go far enough to lock it back. But it'll go far enough that when it goes forward again, it'll strip a round off and fire it. That's inertial discharge. That's very dangerous. That's why you have the safety notch. So you never, when you have a loaded magazine in a Sten, you never have that bolt forward. Never. Later on in the war, the British soldiers didn't listen to that, and there were people who were getting killed. Not only would you get, if you drop this gun with a loaded magazine, not only would you get one round fired, but because there's no one holding the gun while you're firing it, you'll get a short stroke because the bolt will buffer. The movement of the gun would buffer the bolt coming back. So there were times when you could drop this gun and it would fire all 32 rounds in a runaway. And that's why the British came up with a second safety on this gun. This particular gun does not have that second safety because it was made before 1944. In that second safety, they have a hole that's drilled on the other side of the receiver here, and you would push in on this bolt handle and it would go through that hole and lock that bolt forward. And that would keep the bolt from moving if you dropped it. That would keep people from getting killed. This gun, like I said, does not have it. The only safe way to have a loaded magazine in this gun is to have it in the safety notch. Remember? Not killing, killing. So now you know how to get this thing ready here. And in the guns that were equipped with the safety, you would push this in to lock it, and you would pull it out to unlock it, and then you would be ready to fire it. So now you know how to load this. Now you know how to get this gun ready to fire, how to operate it. When you shoot this gun, the manual says never to hold it by the magazine or the magazine, you never hold it by the magazine or the magazine retainer, I forget what they call it, magazine housing. Okay, you have to hold it either in the front, and this is the problem why I don't usually hold it from the front. You can get your finger in this port here. You don't want to get your finger in this port. The later Mark III versions of this gun actually had a metal block here that would stick out and keep your fingers from going past here. So when I have someone shoot this gun who's never shot it before, I say the safest place for them to shoot it is right here. You hold it right here. That's the safest way to shoot this gun. If you're careful and you can keep your fingers away from this port, this is fine too. You have a basic fixed sights here. This machine carbine is actually quite accurate up to 50 yards. It's very easy to shoot. There's very little recoil on it because the 9mm round is not that powerful. This actually, if you have good magazines and good ammo and the gun is clean, this machine carbine is very reliable. At least this particular gun has been reliable. I also wanted to mention that you have two different kinds of magazines for this. This is a 32 round magazine. This is a 50 round magazine, which is much more fun to shoot. This is one of your loaders here. You would load your ammo this way. You'd lift up on this. You'd put your cartridges in this way. And then when you're finished, it comes right off. Then you'd be able to load the gun. So now you know how this gun, you know a little history, and you know how to operate this gun and the controls. So I hope you enjoyed this this video of this ugly old dog. That's one of the best dogs around. So I hope you enjoyed, and thank the wife for taking this video for me. Thank you very much.